Yeah, that was a good one. Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Gittin Daf Lamed Vav, and we're starting at Iboya Lahu, 2/3 of the way down on Lamed Hey Amud Beis. The Gemara says Iboya Lahu tzarech lefaret es haneder o eino tzarech. This is reminiscent of the days of Hataras Nedarim. But in general, when a person needs to be matir neder, do they need to specify the neder or do they not? This is a machlokas amoraim. Rav Nachman amar eino tzarech. You don't need to specify. Rav Papa amar tzarech. Let's go through each sheet. Rav Nachman amar eino tzarech. Why is it that Rav Nachman says that you should not specify? Because he's concerned. Di'i amris tzarich. If you say that you do need to specify, zimnin, there will be times the guys leili dibure. He'll leave something out, and v'chacham my deshama mayfair. He'll be mayfair, but like when you're missing, it's kind of like talking to a teenager, like about what happened. So they leave out a lot of information that you only find out later. So Rav Nachman is saying, look, it's not safe. Because if you're matir neder without having all the information, you're only matir certain components of the neder. It could be an incomplete hafara, and that could lead to halachic issues. Rav Papa amar tzarech, you do need to say them because mishum milsa di isura. Perhaps what you're being matir is something that's usher, and that's not allowed. You gotta know what you're being matir. If a kid says, "I'm going out tonight," where are you going? I'm not telling you. So that's what we call bad parenting. You got to find out from the kids where you're going. Meanwhile, my kid went out last night. Where are you going? He's like, out. I'm like, not helpful. Not helpful. You paskin like Rav Papa. Oh, sorry, you paskin like Rav Nachman.
This is the night we need Dr. Karesh.
I know. But when I was growing up in my home, there was none of this. Like, where are you going? You had to answer. Like, there was no parenting now is much different than the parenting then. Like, if Mrs. Karesh asked you where you're going, you just answered without lying. What?
I was still doing today.
Yeah, you don't mess around with my mom.
No.
This is Karesh asks, she gets. That's just how things go. Let's dig in. 5 lines from the bottom on Lamed Hey Amud Beis. Tanan, we have a Mishnah. Hanose noshim be'avera pasal ad sheyidur hana the tani ad sheyidur hana. We have a Kohen who marries a woman be'avera. He's pasal for avoda until he's yidur hana. He forbids himself with a neder from having hana from her. In other words, he builds a scenario where he can't be married to her anymore. So even though he is married to her, he can still do the avoda once he opens his mouth and says that I'm no longer, he makes a neder. The Tani Allah, we have a brisa that's connected to that Mishnah. And what does the brisa say? Noder, he makes a neder. The oved, he does the avoda. Yored, and then he leaves his avoda from the base of mikdash, and then umegarish. And says the Gemara, beautiful argument. V'i amris, 2-3 lines from the bottom. V'i amris eino tzarech lefaret es haneder. If you don't need to be mefaret the neder, so maybe this husband who made a neder already, perhaps he's going to go over to the bezdin and say, please be matir my neder, and then retroactively he did the avoda that he shouldn't have done, because you can't be married to a pasul. To a psula, you can't have a pasul marriage and do the avoda when you're a kohen. So he made a neder, did the avoda, he was yored, and then he was supposed to be megarish. But if we say that you don't have to be mefaret the neder, then it's very easy to create a scenario where the kohen just undoes the whole thing with she'elas chacham. It has to be that you have to be mefaret the neder. Says the Gemara on the top of Lamed Vav Amud Aleph. No, the madrinan le berabim. What we're talking about is where he made a neder berabim, and it's what Rashi details the case on the top of the page. Dibur maskul al das rabim. Oh, sorry, that's a different Rashi. Don't read that now. The madrinan le berabim. He makes a neder in front of a lot of people, and the Gemara then asks on this because we saw machlokas about making a neder berabim and its possible impact. Okay, I've got you. The brisa that we just saw about the Kohen who's married to a psula that has a pasul marriage, the brisa that says that he's married to this woman and he made a neder, I could understand that we shouldn't be concerned that he's going to ask for hafara because he did a berabim. However, according to the shita that holds that making a neder in public is able to be mayfair. So then we're back to our question, which is that maybe the husband will be madir, he'll be oved, he'll be yored, and then he'll be made for neder, and then again retroactively did an avoda that he shouldn't have done. And the Gemara responds there's something different than making a neder birabim, and that is, says the Gemara, demadrinan le al da'as rabim, a little bit different. Now look at Rashi, al da'as rabim, top of the page, kach yomru, plural lo. That's what they say to him. Hare anu madirin oscha al da'atenu. It's different. It's not me saying in front of 10 people, I hereby agree to do X. It's all of them telling him, the Kohen, we are madir you. You are obligated to divorce your wife. Totally different. It's al das rabim, and al das rabim, nobody allows for afara. De amar ameimar hilchasa filu deman de amar neder shu de barabim yesh lo afara. Even according to the shita that says that if a husband were to articulate his neder in front of 10 people, even according to the one who says that there is hafara, but al das rabim ein lo hafara. No such thing. No such thing. If the room is madir you, you're done. There's no way to ever get out of that neder. Which by the
Did we ever mention this in the Sefer?
This is new.
Okay.
This is new. I've never seen this before until this morning, or this afternoon. Really, let's be honest. Yeah, my flight was delayed. I'm like, I'll learn when the plane takes off. So I was Mavatal's man for like a half hour till the flight took off. Took a nap. Okay. Anyways, the Gemara says, "V'hani mili." When is all of this true? This is only true. L'davar rishus. When do we have this very strict line that al das rabim has no hafara? So that's true, says the Gemara, when it's a davar rishus. About a davar mitzvah, yesh lo hafara. But when it comes to something that's a davar mitzvah, then even if someone has a neder that was put upon him by the rabbim, it can still be undone. And the Gemara,
someone puts it on you.
correct. Al das rabbim is when the room says it to the individual. We hereby obligate, let's say that 10 people say to the Kohen, we hereby obligate you to make a neder to divorce your wife, or we're madir you, whatever language. So we're talking about in the case of al das rabbim, the Gemara says that's only true by a davar rishus, but by a dvar mitzvah, when we're talking about a mitzvah, it's no longer true. And the Gemara gives a case that it's sensitive in today's climate, and rightly so. Kihahu, there was a case where this happened. Kihahu mikri dardiki. There was a Rebbe, a mikri dardiki, the one who reads to children. Literally, mikri is to read. The one who teaches children. He's an elementary school Rebbe. The adre Rav Acha al das Rabbin. The people said to this guy, we were madrim, he can't be a Rebbe anymore. To have a pasha be a nuki, he was hurting the kids. And that's very dangerous. Take a look at Rashi, third line. He hit them too much. Implied that there is a reasonable amount. So in our culture, that's not a thing. In the previous door, even 20, 30 years ago, things were very different. Even here in Chicago, there were still institutions where that was considered. I don't know if it was considered acceptable, but it happened. So now we have zero tolerance for that. Baruch Hashem, it's good. And then what happened? Because we were dealing with a mitzvah, and because there was something going on with this guy that they needed him back in the classroom, even with all of his failings, the Gemara says, Ve'ahadre Ravina, they returned him back to the classroom. Namely, they did hafara, even though he was removed from being a Rebbe al das Rabbim. Huge chiddush. The Gemara says that al das rabbim is only true by a rishus, but by a mitzvah we have an override. And why did they need him back? The lo ishtakach the dayik kavose. There was no one who could teach like him. He was a master in pedagogy. So we're trading. We'll accept the beatings, but at least you're a good Rebbe. Yeah. We have a cancel culture, I agree, but this is not. This I'm uncomfortable with. Again, it's not a good thing to do. The research is out on parenting also. If you hit your kids, all that stuff, go read it over there. All right. Great sugyas today, David, as you mentioned already, really givaldic sugyas. Sugyas about the signatures on a get. Sugyas about pruzbal, about a little bit of the background of pruzbal, which we're going to be starting at the bottom of this page, or the top of the end, but yeah, the bottom of this page. Let's get started. We're a quarter of the way down on Lamed Vav and Aleph. The Gemara says, "Ve'edim chosman ala get mibnei tikkun ha'olam." We had learned in our Mishnah that edim sign a get specifically and exclusively because of tikkun olam. Mipnei tikkun olam deoraisa, who says the Gemara. It seems to be that tikkun olam is a din deoraisa. So what do you mean that you were metake? You made a din derabanan? You can't make a din derabanan when it's already a din deoraisa. And what's our mari makum dichsiv? And this is difficult because the pasuk that's quoted is not in Chumash. The pasuk that's quoted is in Nach. The pasuk says, is it the chasov basefer v'chasom? That's what the pasuk says. It has to be written and it has to be signed. So usually we say divrei Torah midivrei Kabbalah lo yalfinan. A little bit odd. Nevertheless, the Gemara seems to assume that because of the simple phraseology of the pasuk in Sefer Yirmiyahu, that it seems to be that the writing and the signing is a din deoraisa. So the Gemara says, not really. Amar Rabba lo tzricha. Maybe it's the Rabbi Elazar, the Amar Ede Mesira Karti. Really, we might hold like Rabbi Elazar, that we hold that Ede Mesira's Karti is that the people who hand over the get are the people that we care about most. And Takinu Rabbanan Ede Chasima Mibne Tikun Olam. And the only minimum requirement, Mida Oraisa, is Ede Mesira. But the rabbis added a rabbinic enactment that we needed to make sure there are signatures. And now the Gemara explains in exact wording what the Tikkun Olam was according to this approach. Says the Gemara, the Zimnin, sometimes the following can happen. The Maisi Sahade, the Eidim who were the Ede Mesira might die. Or Inamid Zimnin Da'aza Lemedinas Hayam, or they fell off the map, they went out of town and we have no way to reach them. So that is all what the Takana de Rabbanan is that really Ede Mesira Karti, we really only care about the witnesses who watch the handing over of the get v'nasan biyada, that we watch that, the Ede Mesira, they're the Iker. And Midrabanan, we are concerned that because they may not be available, either they might die or they'll go out of reach, they'll be radio silent, we can't catch them, and therefore we don't want that get to go to waste. We want to make sure we can verify the get. So we basically added, it's a multi-factor authentication in our modern parlance. Here's approach number one. And approach number two is if we can't find the Ede Mesira, the Chol HaPachos Mibnei Tikkun HaOlam, we're going to have the Chasimas. Rav Yosef Amar, not necessarily. Afilu Tema Rav Meir, the Rav Meir, even according to Rav Meir, what does Rav Meir hold? Ede Chasima Karti. Rav Meir holds that the Iker is not the Mesir. The Iker is the Chasimas. Even according to him, it's still the case that the signing on the get is a din derabanan, it's a takana derabanan. Hiskinu sheyihu edim mefarshin shmosein begittin mipnei tikun olam, that they actually expressly write their names in the get. What in the world is this talking about? So it says the Gemara Kidditanya. This makes no sense to me. Sorry, I'm just telling you. I'm reading the words. I struggled with this brisa. Birishona hayakosev ani ploni chasamti. And he would actually write the word ploni. He wouldn't even write his own name, or you can even remove the word ploni. If you want to, ani chasamti, that's what he would write. Ani chasamti aid im kasav yado yotze mimakom acher kasher. We have a graphologist. He looks at the guy's handwriting. He says, I recognize Phil's handwriting. Hillel Pinchas ben Shmuel Mordechai. I saw him sign something over there. This is his handwriting. So, Birishona, people didn't even write their names. They just wrote Ani Chasamti. That's crazy. They didn't even write their names. And then, V'im Lav, if we couldn't recognize the handwriting, then Puzzle. And remember who we're talking about. We're talking about Rav Meir, who holds Ede Chasima Karti. That means that Birishona, even according to Rav Meir by Ede Chasima Karti, they weren't even signing their names. They were just writing Ani Chasamti, and they were trying to match handwriting from one signature to the other. Omer Rabban Gamliel, no, insufficient. Takana Gdola Hiskinu Shimefarshin Shmosein Begittin Mipnei Tikun Ha'olam. You actually have to write your name, Hillel Pinchas ben Shmuel Mordechai as a Chasima, and that is the higher level of Ede Chasima Karti. So really, the baseline of Ede Chasima Karti, according to Rav Meir, is chicken scratch. You just write Ani Chasamti, and the Takana that Rabban Gamliel Buddha, and here the Gemara calls it a Takana Gedola, which is interesting itself. Why is it Takana Gedola? Okay, don't know. Maybe I didn't even look. Rashi says
it is a sea change, so to speak.
It's a what?
It's a major change.
Yeah, but it's a Takana Derabanan. It's not like
it's a major change in its function of Gittin, requiring actual name.
yeah.
I mean,
It made it
sounds
easier
normal.
to verify. Super normal to us.
It sounds normal to us, but it's a massive change in the process.
Yeah, and actually, the Gemara right now is going to tell us. Well, that's the next question. The Gemara says, "If Siman alo, can he not?"
Talk about this once. Science.
About what?
Oh, people sign not with their name.
It's mamish this.
Yeah,
No, I don't remember. Did we learn it?
Yeah.
No, we didn't learn it in Shas yet.
When we were learning in there, yes. Tonight we learned in the show.
What is wrong with your memory? Why do you? It's annoying.
I was
It's not-
standing under the book frame.
Very well done. So the Gemara says, if it's Simon alo, why can't we just use some type of icon? You know, some people have unique signatures. You ever see people whose signatures don't look like words? They still function as signatures, but they're recognizable. So the Gemara says, what about a siman? After all, says the Gemara, Rav tzir kura. When Rav would sign things, he would draw a fish. This has a whole new meaning to the fish bumper sticker. I'm just saying, whole different animal that Rav is signing in the shape of a fish. What? Now it is, but that's how Rav used to sign documents. And we'll see soon, that's how he signed psukim, shilas and chuvas. He signed it with a fish. So the Gemara says, we'll see in Rashi in a minute. Rav Chanina tzir charusa, he would draw a palm tree. Rav Chizda wrote a samich. Rav Hoshaya would write an ayin. Rava bar Rav Huna tzir makusa, he would draw. Rashi says it's vilon, it's the sail of a boat. Right? That's how they sign things. Says the Gemara, you're right that those people got away with it, but you can't get away with it. You have to actually write your name. Why do these people get away with it? Shani Rabbanan, 2/3 of the way down, heading to the 2 dots. Debekin simanaihu meikara. Yes, the Bekin simanaihu, because everybody knows their signature. Okay, but how did they get to the point where it was recognizable? I understand now, after 20 years of Rav being Rav, that he signs things with a fish. Got it. How did he get there? If it's not lechatchila to do that without your name, then don't do it. So the Gemara says meikar b'mai afkiinu, and says the Gemara bediski. I don't recall ever seeing this word. Rashi, a little more than halfway down, bediski, shtare she'elos uchuvos ushlamos. These are letters. And because they're the great Talmidei Chachamim, so someone will write a letter to Rav, quote Toras Rabbeinu, Harav Hagon, Rav, they'd write his name in. And when he'd respond to the tshuva, he'd say, quote Toras Rabbeinu, he'd write his whole answer back and he'd sign it with a fish.
But if there's somebody who's, even like a little artistic talent, it's so easily copied.
Copied?
Or forged.
Oh. Yeah, but you can forge signatures too.
Yeah, not to the same level.
Yeah, it's more complicated, it's true. I didn't look into the Rishonim there. It's a good question. Why are we not worried about people lying? The what?
The guy who printed my sukkah can't read Hebrew, and the letters are perfect.
Yeah.
Because he's such a good.
He's an artist. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Maybe he should be the forger too. Could be. I don't know. You're asking good. I don't know. But what's the word bediski? What's the etymology? I don't recall seeing this word. Yeah, I don't know. But we do have this. This has been in existence for millennia, that people were sending shilas and shuvas to rabbanim. There it was the only method. Now we have phone calls. We can text the rabbi for an answer now. Okay. The Gemara says, moving on to the next part of the Mishnah that we had learned the other day. This was the Mishnah that was on the bottom of Lamed Daled Amud Beis. I think that's the Mishnah. Yep. That Hillel was mitakein a pruzbal. We'll see in the Gemara different spellings of pruzbal with a samech and with a zayin. Let's dig in. It's not hasam. Pruzbal eno mishamit. If a person were to write a pruzbal, then Shvi'is, the Shemitah year, will not dissolve the loan. If I've lent you money and we have a pruzbal, Shemitah will not dissolve the loan. Ze echad min hadvarim shehiskin Hillel hazakin. This was one of the enactments that Hillel put into place. Because he saw that people were stopping to lend money, especially toward the end of the Shemitah cycle. Terms and conditions, this hereby needs to be paid before the last day of the halachic year before Shemitah cycle, because nobody wanted to lose their money. And I totally understand that. And Hillel understood it too. You got it. I understand. It's very difficult to make a loan. So he came up, he chapped Ryan. We're going to get into the lumtus of how pruzbal works, because after all, if the Torah is mishamet, if the Torah does undo the loan, who is Hillel to say that the loan wasn't undone? We'll dig into that in a minute. I don't mean who is Hillel in a disparaging way, but it requires an answer. So the Gemara says, what was the deeper concern? Not just the lending, that was a social piece, but from Hillel's perspective, it was a halachic issue. V'avru al masha kasu b'Torah. They were in violation of what was written in the Torah, because the Torah says in Sefer Dvarim, Mishamar lecha penya davar im levavcha b'liyah lemor karva shnasa sheva shnasa shmita v'ra'a eincha be'achicha ha'evyon. You're going to have an evil in your eye, and you're not going to lend things to poor people. That's the rest of the pasuk. So he was saying, again, I'm curious if there's a difference, but Hillel wasn't talking about the social piece. He's quoting a pasuk. It's usher to not lend money to people. That's not the right thing to do. So says the Gemara, Amad hiskin pruzbal. V'zehu gufo shel pruzbal. This is the essence of what a pruzbal says. Mosirani lachem ploni uploni dayanim. I'm giving to you. We quoted this Gemara earlier as a raya that 2 edim comprise a dayan. comprise of bezdin. We saw this earlier as an unrelated Mari Makom, just a couple of blot ago, 4 blot ago. That's what it says on the side here. So basically, Mosrani lachem ploni uploni dayanim shebemakom ploni shekol chov sheyesh li eitzel ploni she'agavenu kol zman she'ertzeh, that I can collect it whenever I want. Shmita irrelevant. We can go straight through Rosh Hashanah, straight through. It could be a 10-year, 20-year loan. Doesn't matter. I can always collect that money. And the hadayanim chosmin lemata o ha'edim, and the dayanim or the edim would be able to sign, no problem at all. So that is the ikar of the prusbul. Then the Gemara asks the question that I had just mentioned a couple of moments ago. The Gemara says, "Umi ikamidi limidi oraisa mishamta shvis, the hiskin hillel delo mishamta." So we need to put on our thinking caps. How does this work? How does it work that the Torah says your loan is completely dissolved, and a rabbi, a human being, comes along and says, no, it's not? That's a really good question.
Lashes, it says 40 lashes, but it's really 39.
That's an interpretation of our boim. That's an interpretation. That's not, this is something different. We're not, the way we understand 40 is 39. It's our boim chasar achas. Here we're saying something different. The Torah is saying your loan is dissolved. And Rabban and Hillel is saying, no, it's not. So it looks like, again, I'm not trying to be heretical. It looks like he's disagreeing with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. He's not a Pashut. He's not. We'll see 2 different Mahalchim now in the Gemara. But that's what the Gemara frames out as this kasha. And let's ask it in halachic terminology. How does a prusbul work? What are the mechanics of a prusbul that it actually requires us to still pay back, even though Shemitah is upon us? And the Gemara says 6 lines from the bottom, approach number 1. Amar Abaye, b'shvis bizman hazeh v'rebihi. We're talking about shvis bizman hazeh, shelo bizman beis hamikdash, and it's within the camp of Rebbe. What does this mean? Tanya, Rebbe Omer, zed dvar hashmita shemot. We have a double language of shmita, and the drasha on this pasuk is, in this brisa, is b'shtei shmitos hakasav medaber. There are 2 components to shmita. We have shmitas karka, which is that you have to leave the land fallow, and we have achas shmitas karka, ve'achas shmitas ksafim, and the other is that loans dissolve. And now here's the lamdas of the Gemara. Bizman she'ata mishamet karka, ata mishamet ksafim. When we have a din of being mishamet karka, that we have to leave the land fallow, namely during the times of the Beis Hamikdash, that is the time when we have shimut ksafim, when we have a dissolving of loans. However, bizman she'iyata mishamet karka, iyata mishamet ksafim. So there's no din de oraisa now, says the Gemara, of shmitas karka, and therefore midoraisa, there's no din of shmitas ksafim. And as we turn to the top of Lamed Vav, Abaye's answer gets fleshed out a little more. V'takinu rabbanon ditishame zecher l'shvius, and the Chachamim instituted that we're going to still have it be mishamet midrabanan. And it was at this point in history where the Jewish people were struggling to loan. It was a din de rabbanan. It wasn't a din de oraisa. What's implied from the Gemara is that Bisman Beis Hamikdash, nobody struggled. It's really hard to say that because Hillel was there. It's hard to say that. But Abaye's answer was seemingly that what we're talking about is Shelo Bisman Beis Hamikdash, when there is no Shmitas Karka, then there is no Shmitas Ksafim, and therefore, midrabanan, you're obligated to be Meshamed, Zecher L'Shvis, you're obligated to say that the loan is dissolved, only midrabanan, but Ra Hillel Shenimnu Ha'ami L'Halbo Zezeh Amad V'Iskin Prusbol. So here's the flow. Chayiv midoraisa, Pater midoraisa, Chayiv midrabanan, and then the takana comes in to dissolve with the prusbol. That's the answer of Abaye. Asks the Gemara, let's flip the question. Umi ikamidi dimide oraisa lo meshamta shvis v'takinu rabbanan d'teshamet. This is the other way around. This question's not as strong, respectfully. Why? Because we have dinim de rabbanan all the time. But what the Gemara is really concerned about is something a little bit different, which is how can you make a din that undoes a takana de rabbanan? It's a little bit more lumdish than it seems. We had a takana de rabbanan in place. The takana de rabbanan that was in place is that it's mishamed. It's zecher l'shvis, but it's still mishamed. You're still obligated to let the loan dissolve. So the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, Shev ve'al ta'asehu. You could write a book on these 4 words. And the Gemara is basically saying is that when you have a din derabanan, like we have over here, that zecher l'shvi'is, it's mishamta, that really the loans dissolve. And we're saying the loans, that really the loans dissolve. And we're saying it doesn't dissolve. So says the Gemara, the way this works is b'shev ve'al ta'aseh. We know that we can even be ma'akar something, ma'akar davar shebetorah b'shev ve'al ta'aseh. This is even a din d'rabbanan. This is even lighter. It's even a lower level. That is all the answer of Abai. Rava disagrees. Rava Amar, no. The reason why Shemitah, he holds the Shemitah is D'oraisa. And if Shemitah is D'oraisa, if Shemitah is Karka is D'oraisa, then Shemitah Ksafim is D'oraisa. And Mida Oraisa, really the loan dissolves. So why then can we have a Shita of Hillel? Why then can we have a Shita of Hillel that allows for us to say that there is a pruzbal? Says the Gemara, Amar, Hefker Bezdin Hefker. It's a halachic mechanism, and basically we can be mafkir the ownership of these items, and therefore it changes the dinim. You're no longer the owner of these items, therefore the regular rules of Shmitas Ksafim don't apply. That's what the pruzbol does. What did they say? Mosrani ani leploni uploni dayanim. I'm giving this over to you. I don't own it anymore. You're now achrei. That's hefker bezdin hefker.
So if it's hefker.
Hefker bezdin hefker. It's not stam hefker. I was mafkir it to bezdin.
Oh, okay, so then that kind of gets
Right.
into my question, because.
It's a little
otherwise-
different. It's not stam hefker because then I can take it.
For anybody.
Anyone can take it. But that was that when the Gemara said on the previous page that the ikar language of the pruzbal was Mosrani, I'm giving over all of my loans to you, to Bezdin, which means that Phil is no longer the malve and Tex is no longer the love. Bezdin does holding everything. But I'm allowed to collect from Bezdin, Hefker, Bezdin, Hefker. And the Gemara says, Shene'emar, what is the Mari Makom that we see that Bezdin, that Hefker, Bezdin, Hefker works? Minayin says, sorry, I skipped a line. How do we know that it works? Shene'emar, the pasuk says, "V'chol asher yavo l'shlosha sayamim ke'atzas asar v'azkenim yochoram kol rechusho v'yibodam mikahal hagol." This was an unfortunate story in the times of the second Beis Hamikdash, where people were intermarrying. It's very hard to intermarry in Israel today because, by and large, it's Jews and Arabs. There are some exceptions, but by and large, it's Jews and Arabs. In America, apparently, it's the thing to do. We're like the only holdouts in the Orthodox community. But by and large, that's what the din is. That the din is that what they were doing was not the din. They married out. And the Gemara says that Ezra said to everyone, everybody has to show up in the next 3 days. And if you don't show up in the next 3 days, Yocharam kol rechusho, I'm taking away all of your property. What does that show you? Hefker Bezdin Hefker. That's the raya. Rabbi Elazar Amar Mehacha. No, we know Hefker Bezdin Hefker from somewhere else. Where do we know Hefker Bezdin Hefker from? Because the pasuk says, Elu anachalos asher nachlu Elazar hakohen Yeshua benun b'roshei avos v'gomer. When the land of Eretz Yisrael was being dispersed amongst the tribes, the list of people who were involved were Elazar, were Elazar HaKohen, Yoshua bin Nun, and then it says V'roshei Avos. So it says the Gemara, Kimayin Roshim Eitzel Avos. What are the heads of families doing here? They don't have a say in the matter. This is done on the upper echelons of the government. It's Yoshua, it's Elazar HaKohen. You got the heads of the family of Kahas and Merari chiming in. Of course, they're going to want something. That can't be what the pshat in the pasuk is. It says the Gemara, Lo Marlach, a quarter of the way down, on Lamed Vav Mebes to teach you Ma'avos Manchilanes B'neim Kol Mashe Yirtzu. Just like a father can give as a nachala to his children anything that he owns, Av Roshim Manchilanes Am Kol Mashe Yirtzu. So too, the Roshim can do that. Namely, the heads are in charge. Namely, Hefker, Bezdin, Hefker. Okay, all of this is phase 1 of the world of Pruzbal, which is how Pruzbal works. Machlokas Abaye and Rava. Abaye says that we're dealing with a case that's a din d'Rabbanan, and it's actually a multi-stepped process that really midoraisa. There is no shimut ksafim, shmitas ksafim. Mid'Rabbanan, you're obligated to say that there's shmitas ksafim, that my loan to you is dissolved. But came along the Takana of Hillel to say, no, even though there's a Takana d'Rabbanan, we still need to allow for people to not have the loans be dissolved because nobody's loaning to poor people. That's a big problem, and therefore the pruzbal works. Ma'ashein Kain, according to Rava, shmitas ksafim is a din d'oraisa, but the reason why shmitas ksafim works is because of hefker bezdin hefker. The Gemara, a third of the way down, we're going to be going to the top of Daf Lamed Zayin and Aleph, and then we'll stop. And tomorrow a blot and a half. The Gemara says, "Ibaylahu ki hiskin hilal pruzbal l'darehu desakin, o dilma l'dare alma namitakin." Which one is it? Was it a generational concern? Sometimes you look out in your community and you have to say, cell phones are getting too much, we have to put in a takana. Does it apply for Dorei Doros? Lav Dafka applies right now. So we didn't know the statutes of limitations. We didn't know what it was. So the Gemara is trying to be done. What was the opinion of Hillel when he put this in place? Was his opinion that this should last forever, or is just for his door? So the Gemara says, Lemay nafkamina. What's the difference between the two? So obviously the answer is Livitule, whether or not we can cancel this takana. Maybe we should allow for Shemitas Ksafim to take place, like the regular Din D'Rabbanan. Remember that we're on, especially according to Abaye, we're on the backdrop of a Din D'Rabbanan that we allow for Shemitas Ksafim, and Hillel came to override that. So if Hillel's din is only for his generation, then in 25 years, whatever a generation is, things change. And then we now have Shemitas Ksafim again, and Hillel's din doesn't apply. So the Gemara says, Iamris l'darehu detakin. If it's going to be that it's only for his generation, l'dareh, for his door, so then mivat linon, then it should be dissolved right after his generation is over. If in fact it was going to be for the future as well, says the Gemara, even if you want to say that it's the Dorei Doros, but when he dies, it doesn't just go away. The way we undo takanos derabanan is that we need a bezdin that's gadol b'chachmo b'minyan. All these debates, should we say shelo asani isha from the left flank of orthodoxy? That's the anshe knesses agdola. You want to override that? You need a bezdin that's gadol b'chachmo b'minyan. I was just in Florida yesterday. I had a meeting with someone. They said, I've looked at the phrase dalif neime ata omeid 1,000 times. I never once thought that it precludes all of the women in Klal Yisrael, because it says ata instead of at. It's just ridiculous. It's just why not? Ata.
Speak to men and women who speak.
Oh yeah, well, the whole thing is frivolous.
I'm not
yeah, it's frivolous. Yeah, correct. It was a frivolous claim, and I had to sit there and smile. Correct. Correct. The only time we make diukim like that is when it's banim v'lo bano. Sometimes we have a drasha like that, but the word at and ata is very much lav dafka and halach. I don't think we've ever seen a drasha like that. So it's maraf sinigra. The whole thing was I had to be polite because I was in no setting to be a kanoi, but I'll be a kanoi here, and I disagreed with the I disagreed with him. I have to clip this out later. Okay. Well, if she hears, I have to clip it out. Okay, let's continue. No, I'm gonna get my first time. I'm gonna edit one of them.
I was gonna say
first time. Like 1,200. We're there. By the way, right after Rosh Hashanah is a 50-yard line. I think it's Tzom Gedalia is a 50-yard line.
We're less than 4 years away.
Yeah, June 7th of 2027. Okay. Wow. Okay. Why do you know that? It's random. It's from Michael. So says the Gemara. We therefore, we're back to our question. Do we say that the takana of Pruzbal that Hillel allowed is the takana? Is it going to be the Dorei Doros, or was it just for his generation? Toshma halfway down. Alamed Vavam Beis. The Gemara says the Amar Shmuel. Lo kasvin and Pruzbal ela ibe beidina de surah, ibe beidina de narda. Either in surah where Rav was, or in narda where Shmuel was. If you want to say that really it was the Dorei Doros, so then b'shar beidina name lichtavu. They should be able to undo the whole thing anyways. Says the Gemara, no, Dilma Kitakin Hillel Ladari Alma, but it's Kigon, Beidina Didei, Ucharav Ami, Varavasi, Dalimi Lav Kuimamuna. These people are strong enough to actually extract money from you. Not everyone was strong enough to extract money from people. Aval Kule Almalo, perhaps it wasn't for the broader populace, so we still don't know. Let's try again. 2/3 of the way down. Toshma Damar Shmuel. Ha Pruzbila Ulbana. The word ulbana we'll soon see is a word of chutzpah. A pruzbala ulbana, this stubborn pruzbal, the daini, Dedainihu. Sorry, let me read that again. Ha pruzbala ulbana dedainihu. The pruzbala is a thorn in the side of dayanimu. Yaisher chayil. If it's all good, avtaline. And it says the Gemara avtaline. V'ha'en bezdin yochel levatal divrei bezdin chavram kin gadol ha'imenu b'chach muvamin. That doesn't even make any sense. We know that they can't just be mevatel it, because if in fact it needs to be mevatel by another bezdin, it can only be by a bezdin that's greater b'chach muvamin. It says the Gemara, Hachi Kamar, Imaisher Chayil Yoser Mehillel Avtaline. If in fact it's a good thing, so then if it's Yoser, then Hillel. Only if the Bezdin is bigger than Hillel, then they can be Mavatal. Otherwise, they can't. But yeah, it would be mutter in theory for another Bezdin to be Mavatal, and that means that it's really L'Dorei Doros. The Rav Nachman Omar, he says the opposite. Aikimna, he says I want to reinstate the din of pruzbal. So says the Gemara, what do you mean reinstate the din of pruzbal? Akimna, how can you say that? Hamakayim akoy. We already have a din of pruzbal. What are you talking about? Says the Gemara, Hachi Kamar, Ema Bamilsa. This is a wild sheet of Rav Nachman. The afal gav de lo kasav kikasav dami. Even if you don't write a pruzbal, it's as if it's written already. That's very, very, very mechudash. Can you say that? The baseline din, either according to Bai or Rava, is that the pruzbal applies, is that the pruzbal doesn't apply. We need a chiddush of the pruzbal. You have to write it. Mosrani ani l'dayanim X and Y. Okay. Next question, one more technical question. The Gemara says, when we said hi ulbana, when we said that the pruzbal was ulbana dedaini, was that lishna de chutzbahu or lishna de nichusa? Was it a negative word or was it a positive word? So tashma, says the Gemara, that by the Egel Azav, we have a little bit of a homily. We said, Tashma Damar Ula, Aluva Kalash Zinsa Bekarav the Chupasa. It's really terrible that the Kala was Mizaneh, so close to the Chuppah. This is the Egel Azav, so close to Har Sinai. Amar Rav Mari, Bera, Debas, Shaul, Maikra. What is the pasuk where we see this? So it's a pasuk from Shir Shirim. Acheb Amelech Bim Sibo, near Dino San Recho. When the Melech was at his party, near Dina San Recho, there was a reduction in the giving of the smell, meaning the perfume had waned a little bit. So that was kind of a sign. So again, it's a gentle homily of what the Jews did, and what the Jews did was terrible at the time. And Amar Rava, he actually was medayik from this pasuk, and the Gemara says, Adayin chavivusahu gabon. Even though the Jewish people violated the Egel Azav, but there was still chavivus. HaKadosh Baruch Hu still loved the Jewish people. Why? Because when the pasuk said that the Jewish people deviated, the pasuk in Shir Hashirim with the homily of the perfume, tichsiv nosan, it says near di nosan recho, they lowered the amount of perfume. The Gemara says it says nosan v'lo ksiv hisriach. So therefore, we're grasping at straws to make sure Hashem still loves us, because Egel Azav was a very big crime. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. We have another usage of this word. And this is a beautiful hashkafa. This is for social workers to tell people, and for us to work on our midos. If I get insulted and I don't retort with an insult, I hear a disgrace about me and I don't reply. And they do things with love and they're happy with their yisurim. We've seen this Gemara before, no? Yoma. So that's what the Gemara says. My pruzbal, what's the language of pruzbal? It's a very strange language. Says the Gemara, Amar Achiza, prus, boli, ubuti. Pruzbal. It's like a notary cone kind of a thing. So says the Gemara, what do all these words mean? So the Gemara says that buli is elu ashirim. They are the wealthy people. The pasuk says v'shavarti es geon uzchem. V'shavarti here is talking about geon uzchem. V'tani Rav Yosef elu bolaos shebi Yehuda. These are the wealthy people. We translate the pasuk through Rav Yosef's lens. The people who are geon uzchem, they were bolos. They were very wealthy. That's what Rashi says on the second line, that they were ashirim. And Buti Elu Ha'aniyim, Lamed Zayin Amid Aleph, 3 lines down, D'chsiv Ha'aveit Ta'avitenu, a language we're familiar with. That there we see that language. And therefore, that's what pruzbal means. It's pros, buli, ubuti. It's a document for the poor and for the wealthy. And lastly, a little bit of a story on the same note. Amar Le Rabba Lilauza. He heard someone who spoke a foreign language who said the word pruzbal. He said, oh, wait. My prusbal. When you said the word prusbal, what's the etymology of the word? Says the Gemara that he says pursa de milsa. So it's a document about the thing, meaning it's all talking about the same thing. This language is not very descriptive, but pursa de milsa is a reference here to the fact that there is a document that helps people to navigate the whole world of ashirim holding back from giving out loans. We'll stop right here. Tomorrow we'll pick up with Lamed Zayin and Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. Today's Wednesday, right?
Yep.
So we'll pick up with a blot and a half. Pretty, all of them are medium-sized blot. We'll try to move quickly. Wishing you all a beautiful night.